We were speaking today about the incentives that tariffs create in the healthcare system. And one of the central points that I was making is that all tariff systems create incentives. Whether you do so on purpose or you do so by default, you create behaviors by how you price medical products. In England, we have used a system of tariffs that combines outcome-based measures like improved cancer outcomes, improved stroke outcomes, with an understanding of the costs and the efficiency that hospitals have to provide, and trying to experiment with different forms of tariffs. The main tariff system based on activity, but also tariffs based on best practice, based on innovation, based on trying to bring forward new types of medical care. And I'm the first person to say that the British system is not the best system in the world, but one of the things that we have done over time is to experiment with these different types of tariffs. The lessons that come from that experimentation are twofold in the main. First of all, that the tariffs have to be in place for a long enough time for the system to adapt. We've had tariffs in place for diabetes treatment. We've had tariffs in place for stroke treatment that have been in place for 5 or 10 years in order to allow hospitals, local services to invest and to adapt and to try to develop measures that will improve the treatment in those areas. The second important point is that the tariffs have to put enough revenue at risk for the providers to change their behavior. And so one system of best practice tariffs that we've had in place put about 3% of a hospital's revenue at risk if they did not meet the outcomes that were required by that tariff. And 3% was about enough to get the hospitals to change some of their systems in response. Over time, slowly, that 3% has decreased to about 1.25%. And now 1.25% is no longer enough for any provider to really change its behavior. By doing very little, they might be able to get half or 3/4 of that amount anyway, and the additional effort to get the additional bit of money is not worthwhile. And so you need to put enough money on the table to get the changes that you want to make. And those were the two main lessons from some of the tariff experimentation in the UK, that they need to be in place for long enough and there needs to be enough revenue associated with it. In the discussion that we had afterwards, the other important point that was raised is that you need to have the medical profession bought into all of these incentives and this revenue that is being created. And in England as well, we have tried very hard to ensure that the budget holders and the people who are feeling the consequences of these tariffs are the medical professionals who are responsible for their area of care, to make them aware both of the efforts that they have to make to improve the healthcare outcomes of their patients, as well as the costs of those efforts. And obviously, it is all still work in progress, and we are learning as we go along. But those are some of the lessons emerging from the British system to date.